You used to sleep peacefully, you used to feel okay with how things were, but now something's different. There's this background hum in your mind, like a question you can't quite answer. It's not anxiety, it's not even fear, it's a deeper kind of movement, restlessness, a subtle pull, like something inside you has woken up before the rest of you has. You can't shake it. You could be sitting in a meeting, watching a movie, or surrounded by friends, yet there's a voice inside asking, is this it? It's not that your life is bad. On the surface, maybe it even looks pretty good, but underneath that, something feels missing. You can't explain it to others, and honestly, you're not even sure you understand it yourself. What used to fulfill you doesn't hit the same anymore. Achievements feel like checkpoints, not destinations. Conversations feel shallow. Comfort feels like stagnation. There's the thing about restlessness. It doesn't mean something is wrong, it means something is ready to grow, to stretch, to evolve. This is the phase where you start to look at your life differently, not out of judgment, but curiosity. Why do I do what I do? Who am I trying to please? What would happen if I stopped pretending everything is fine and just admitted, I want more, not more things, but more life, more depth, more truth, more real. You find yourself pulled towards things you used to ignore. A book you randomly pick up feels like it was written just for you. A stranger says something that hits you like lightning. The signs were always there, but now you're actually noticing. This is no longer coincidence, it's alignment. Something within you is trying to get your attention. You may try to go back to how things were. You'll tell yourself, maybe I'm just tired or maybe I'm overthinking, but it doesn't work. You can't unfeel what you're feeling. That restlessness isn't going anywhere because it's not a flaw, it's a signal. It's the soul's way of saying, we've stayed too long in the waiting room. You're being invited to move, not run away from your life, but run toward the life that's calling you. And yes, it may feel uncomfortable, but growth always does. The seed must break before it becomes a tree. At first, the restlessness can feel like a problem, but it's not here to torment you, it's here to shake you awake. It's your reminder that you're not meant to be numb, you are meant to feel the fire of being alive. This isn't the end of your peace, it's the beginning of your transformation. If you've been feeling this way, don't panic and don't rush to fix it, just sit with it, let it speak. Listen closely, it has wisdom to offer. It's the most honest part of you trying to pull you into alignment with something greater. This is the moment when many turn away, distracted or afraid. But if you choose to stay, if you choose to honor the restlessness, not as a weakness, but as a sacred sign, then you'll discover something profound. It was never chaos. It was the beginning of your becoming. At first it starts small, a single thought in the middle of an ordinary moment. Maybe you're scrolling, maybe you're driving, maybe you're mid-conversation, and suddenly a quiet voice rises up from inside you and asks, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I care about this? Why does this feel off? It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it simply whispers. And once it does, you can't unhear it. What used to make perfect sense starts to feel shaky. The rules you followed without thinking, the ideas about success, love, family, faith, or even your own personality begin to unravel, not because someone told you to question them, but because something within you has matured enough to see they may not be yours. They were handed to you, inherited, taught, programmed. This questioning isn't rebellion, it's not teenage angst or a midlife crisis, it's clarity. You're beginning to see that not all beliefs deserve your loyalty, not all habits deserve to be called home. And just because something has been done a certain way for years, doesn't mean it should continue that way for one more day. There's discomfort in this. Questioning can make you feel like a stranger in your own life. You might look at your career, your relationships, your religion, even your own name and ask, is this really me or just the costume I learnt to wear? It's unsettling, but it's also the first step toward truth. You might start reading books you once would have ignored, listening to voices you once would have dismissed. Your curiosity grows, not to gather opinions, but to get closer to something real, something unshaped by fear or pressure or survival. You start searching, not out of doubt, but out of a deep longing to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. This is when you notice that questioning doesn't destroy you, it refines you. The old identity cracks, yes, but only so the light can get in. The questioning cuts through the noise. It asks, what do I know to be true in the quiet of my own being, when no one else is watching? And here's what's beautiful. You don't have to answer everything at once. You're allowed to sit in the unknown. In fact, you must. The questioning is not meant to lead you to new cages, but to new freedom. Let the old stories fall apart, let the myths collapse. What remains is something unshakable, your inner knowing. You begin to realize that real strength doesn't come from having all the answers, it comes from having the courage to leave the questions, to hold space for uncertainty while still walking forward. That is the soul's kind of bravery people around you may not understand. They might feel threatened by your questions, they might call it a phase or ask why you're changing. But that's okay, you're not changing, you're returning, and this questioning is part of the sacred path back to yourself. So, don't fear the unraveling, don't rush to reweave what's falling apart. Let the threads fall, let the structure collapse if it must, because what you're left with after the asking, after the peeling away, after the silence, is something real, raw and free. That's not destruction, that's awakening. Letting go doesn't always begin with a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it starts in silence. A moment where the conversation feels forced, a smile doesn't reach your eyes, a message sits unanswered. You realize something is different, not in them, not in the world, but in you. The connection that once felt necessary now feels heavy, and you can't quite pretend anymore. There comes a moment on the path of growth where you begin to see what is holding you in place rather than helping you rise. It's not always toxic, it's not always painful, sometimes it's simply familiar. But familiarity isn't the same as alignment. And now you're more drawn to truth than comfort. That shift changes everything. People who once felt like home now feel like a version of yourself that no longer exists. You love them, you thank them, but something within you no longer resonates. The jokes don't land, the values don't match, the energy feels foreign. And without bitterness or blame, you start to step back, not because they're wrong, but because you're different. The same thing happens with patterns. The late nights numbing with your phone, the endless self-doubt dressed as humility, the way you always said yes to avoid confrontation. These patterns were never evil, they were survival. But survival isn't your only goal anymore. You're here to live, not just exist. Letting go doesn't mean you hate what came before. It means you're willing to honor it for what it taught you and still release it. Growth is not always addition, sometimes it's subtraction. Sometimes the most powerful step forward is walking away from what no longer feeds your spirit. This process is rarely neat. There will be guilt, there will be second-guessing, your mind will ask, am I being selfish? But your soul knows. It knows that staying small for the sake of others does no one any favors. You cannot light up the world by dimming your own flame. There will be grief too, not just for people, but for identities, roles you played, stories you told, parts of yourself you clung to because they were familiar, but now you're outgrowing the shell. the skin is too tight. The version of you that kept the peace, bit their tongues, stayed silent, it's dissolving. In its place, a more authentic version is emerging, one that speaks less but says more, one that's not here to perform but to be present, one that doesn't cling but connects. You start attracting different energy, people who meet you where you are, not where you were pretending to be. This letting go is not abandonment, it's alignment, it's a return to your true rhythm. You're not pushing people away, you're simply no longer reaching where your soul no longer stretches. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. Some were here for a chapter, not the whole book. So if you find yourself letting go of people, of patterns, of pieces of your past, trust that is part of the becoming. You are not being cold, you are being clear, and clarity is the birthplace of freedom. There comes a point where the noise of the world, once thrilling or at least tolerable, begins to feel like static. Crowds don't energize you the way they used to. Small talk drains you. Even the constant buzz of your own thoughts starts to feel like too much. And in that quiet ache for something deeper, you find yourself drawn, not to more activity, but to less. You crave space, you crave stillness, you crave solitude. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's not the absence of people, it's the presence of yourself. For perhaps the first time, you're not afraid to be alone with your thoughts. You start seeking time away, not to escape others, but to return to yourself. You discover there's a whole world inside you, waiting to be heard, felt, known, and the only way to reach it is through silence. Nature begins to speak a different language to you. The trees, once just scenery, now feel alive. The sky feels like a mirror. The breeze on your skin touches something deeper than your body. It brushes your soul. You realize the earth doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it just is. And in that being, there is profound wisdom. The more time you spend in nature or in solitude, the more your mind begins to quiet down. You notice the patterns, how the sun rises without urgency, how rivers carve rock not through force, but through persistence. These are teachings, not metaphors. Life itself is teaching you how to flow, how to be. You begin to feel that silence is not empty, it's full of answers you were too busy to hear before. In the quiet, you remember what matters. You start to sense what is real versus what is noise. Your intuition becomes sharper, not because it got louder, but because everything else got softer. People may wonder why you've become less social, why you're harder to reach, more selective with your energy. But you're not pulling away, you're being pulled inward. And it's not a retreat, it's a return. You're tuning back into something ancient, something sacred, the self that exists beneath performance, beneath productivity, beneath personality. You might find yourself waking up early just to watch the sky change color, or walking with no destination, simply because the silence between footsteps feels holy. You realize peace is not something you chase, it's something you access when you slow down enough to feel it. This inner pull toward solitude isn't forever, but it is necessary. It's a season of shedding, a sacred pause. It's where old identities dissolve and new roots form. Without it, the transformation doesn't hold. Without it, you carry old noise into new beginnings. And so, you honor the pull. You stop apologizing for needing time, space, quiet. You understand that the deepest parts of your being only speak in whispers. And if you don't create silence, you'll never hear them. In the end, solitude doesn't isolate you, it reconnects you to your essence, to the earth, to God, to truth. In that quiet, you're not alone, you are finally, fully, undeniably whole. You begin to notice things others brush off, a repeated number on the clock, a song that comes on at just the right moment, a stranger's words that echo something you've been silently asking. These are not accidents, not anymore. You feel it, life is communicating. The unseen is beginning to speak, and it's speaking directly to you. At first you doubt it, maybe it's just coincidence, maybe your mind is playing tricks on you. But then it happens again and again until it becomes undeniable. The timing is too perfect, the message is too precise, and something inside you whispers, pay attention. It's not that the signs weren't there before, it's that now you're finally attuned to them. Your awareness has sharpened, your inner world has quieted enough to hear what was always being said. The universe doesn't use a loudspeaker, it uses patterns, it uses synchronicity, it uses the language of alignment. Dreams become more vivid, encounters feel fated. You get answers before you even ask the question aloud. It's not magic, it's presence. It's the result of being deeply in tune with something beyond logic, beyond ego, beyond what can be measured. You begin to trust your intuition more, even when it defies explanation. You walk into a room and instantly know the energy is off. You think of someone and they call. You feel drawn toward a place or a book or a moment, and later realize it gave you exactly what you needed. This is the unseen guiding you, not as a superstition, but as a living, breathing intelligence. The more you honor these moments, the more they show up. The universe doesn't waste words. When you listen, it speaks more clearly. When you act on the guidance, the next step appears. It's like walking in fog with a lantern. You don't see the whole path, only the next few feet, but that's all you need. Sometimes the messages come as peace, sometimes as disruption. A job falls through, a plan collapses, a relationship ends, and even though it hurts, you feel strangely calm. As if some deeper part of you knows this isn't punishment, it's redirection. The unseen doesn't always comfort, it clears the way. You stop needing proof, you no longer demand explanations. You realize that the most important things in life, love, purpose, timing, are rarely seen, yet always felt. And so, you lean into that feeling, you follow the quiet knowing, you let the seen and the unseen work together to shape your becoming. Others might not understand, they might roll their eyes when you say, I just felt it was right. But that's okay, you're no longer living for certainty, you're living for alignment. And that means letting go of the need to explain what your soul understands perfectly. In the end, the unseen doesn't speak loudly because